Hello, today's episode of Path, Passion, Purpose by Diane's is coming to you directly from the OR room, and I'm so humbled to be here. Before we introduce our guest, I just want to say that while many of us might be stressed with our jobs or overwhelmed, being in this room brings things into perspective. The people in this room save our lives, and we are so grateful to actually welcome to our podcast Professor Dr. Philippe Schucht, who is in charge of the Department for Neurosurgery at the University Hospital Bern in Switzerland, the main hospital for neurosurgery. Welcome, Philippe.
Pleasure to have you here.
So in a minute, we're going to dive into your journey of how you actually ended up doing the work you're doing today. But I would also like to introduce a bit of more holistic version of you, because you're not only doing this amazing work in this room and at this hospital, you're also a very successful entrepreneur and investor in Trustedoctor. And I know you also have other investments trying to bring forwards this field, as well as doing a lot of philanthropic work. So I would really like to dive into all of that deeper during our session today. Can you tell us what made you decide to save lives? Or was it a decision you decided already at a very young age? Or is this something you grow into? What were the life-changing events that led you to realize, I want to actually save people's lives?
So I think that's a very interesting question, and I think in hindsight, we always think that our life was kind of a straight line, always wanted to do that and so on. And maybe that's a part of it. Another part is people you meet on the way. You have some ideas what you want to do in your life, and then doors open, you meet the right people, they inspire you, they become role models for you, and that kind of how pushes you in a certain direction. I'm not from a family of doctors. My family are all, they are entrepreneurs, they're in finance and background, they're not doctors. So I didn't really have a role model as such in my family. But I liked the idea of being a doctor. So I thought that that's a great thing to spend your life on, or your business or your work life on. So I like the idea of being a doctor a lot. If you become a doctor, there are a couple of questions on the way, decisions you have to make. One is you want to be a surgeon or a doctor. Doctors are great things, great people. They have a great focus on diagnostics. They give you treatment that takes a lot of time and will get excellent results at some point. Surgeons is a very different mentality. Surgeons, it's more kind of, or at least for what we do, more risky things, where you have some stakes every day, but in the evening you know what you've done. And that part I loved. I love this idea that you go in and then in the evening you'll know what you've done and how the patient's going to be. So that I liked a lot. So very early on I decided I want to be a surgeon. And then when you're a surgeon, you have to decide on which organ you're interested in. And that for me was very clear. I think that the heart is a very interesting organ for surgeons, and the other one definitely is the brain. I mean, you live your life between your ears. This is where everything happens. This is where you think, yes, of course. This is where your spirit is at home. This is where you feel. This is where everything for me actually happens. It's the most complex thing of the known universe for us. And for me, it's absolutely magic what happens behind your eyes. And so I decided, if I can, then this is what I want to do. This is the one organ I think of the highest complexity, biggest stakes. And also now we've moved into an area where, thanks to a lot of technologies and now AI, we can be much more precise in our surgeries, which means that the patient has lesser risks, and we can be more aggressive and more successful on the surgeries we do. So I think it was kind of it's a golden age for neurosurgery or brain surgery, and so I'm very happy to be in that field today.
And now I want to come to the brain a little bit back later, but from my humble understanding is we are still not completely understanding all the complexities of the brain. And you just mentioned AI, so I just want to pick up on that. Is AI really supporting you in your work? Do you see where this is going without going too much in depth into it?
I think there are a lot of promises on the horizon, and we don't know to what extent that's justified. Diagnostics, and that includes for the diagnostics for the brain, is certainly something that could really be helped a lot by AI. I can't. It's not like we have a robot somewhere who does the surgery based on some AI algorithms at the moment. It helps you to crunch data for the time being. Neurosurgery is still a field which is very manual. So you have chairs that help you. You have a lot of tech and a lot of fine instruments. You have navigation units, which is kind of GPS guided surgeries. You have a lot of that, but at the end, it's still something we do with our fingers. And everything else kind of augments our reality and helps us to be a bit more precise without really taking it over. So I think these are great promises, but to be seen.
Okay, thank you. And so you've been extremely successful in the traditional path of your career, so to speak. At what point did you realize you also, on top of that, and this is such tremendous work you're already doing, you wanted to also become an entrepreneur and investor and actually push even further your field?
Yeah. So, I think most of all, I've been lucky. I've been lucky that I found a field I'm good at and which I really like to do. And I think always, if you really like what you do, you'll be good at that. And I think I'm good at that because I like to do it. And I was very lucky. I had great mentors, people I worked with. Neurosurgery is not really depending on a single surgeon anymore. In this room, tomorrow we're going to be operating a person in here. Will probably be about 15, 17 people working all day long, very coordinated. If neurosurgery works well, it's because you have a successful team where each one knows what to do. That was different maybe 50 years ago, where you had these eminent surgeons who would, save the world by themselves. Today, it's much more how well coordinated you are. Yes, you have to be a good surgeon, but it's really teamwork. But then to your question about doing other things, I really enjoyed neurosurgery. I always had this ambition also, and this dream of becoming a teacher also, so to become a professor at my university. And I became this, I think, when I was 39. And somehow that wasn't as joyful as I thought, because once again, it's more the journey than really the accomplishment at the end. So when I had that, I was kind of, now what? What are we going to do next?
Yes.
And then reflecting on what we do, I saw things that I could not do in my profession. What I mean by that is, neurosurgery is something I love doing, but I'm in repairs. I mean, we repair people. You call it, we save lives, and sometimes we do, and we're very grateful for that. But we're not necessarily creative in terms of, we don't build something up that wasn't there. We repair things. And then personally, I realized I'm missing that. I'm missing that part. The creativity. We have some creativity in terms of research. We think of new ways how to do things, different approaches to get things out, to do surgery. But, there are people who build schools. And that's amazing. There are people who are engineers. They build things that weren't there before. And that's really cool. It's not part of the neurosurgical profession as such. And so at some point, already 15 years ago, I started like a non-profit because I loved teaching. And here again, I wanted to build something up. So I looked for a country which really needed an educational program, started that there. And then again, when I became professor and at 39, I wanted to do something else, and I went to Harvard Business School, which was a very strange choice because I'm in medicine. The other thing is a business school, but they sold it very well, and I figured that I could learn a lot from other people who had other problems. And have completely other solution, and listen to them and see what they do and how I could use that maybe for the things we do. And that's why I then went to Harvard Business School, but just for like an MBA for dummies. So I call it like this because it's not an academic MBA or something, but it's something that really helps you to look at your own problems with completely different eyes. And then we had and with people from there we started a project and Trustedoctor.
That's amazing. And I can really relate to your path because it's when you achieve your life's goal at such an early age, and in what you're doing, in what you're doing, 39 is ridiculously early. You start questioning, so what? And is this all of it? And I actually did also the same program for the same reasons. I want to look in and say, like, what does my personal leadership look like? My personal also impact, and what more can there be? And so, what's Trusted Doctor a little bit about? Because I know it's a very exciting company, co-founded with someone I went to university with, completely different school.
Yes.
So I'm actually excited about it, but I learned about that last week.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah. So there were two people, Luka Tchaikovsky and Greg Yatzabek, and when we were, crunching problems or discussing problems and how they love to say challenges in Boston, we started looking at how we do things, and we were, we were impressed in how many other fields you have a lot of progress. Things are being done increasingly different in a more innovative way. And we realized, how do you go see, how is diagnostics done? How are you, how do you consult specialists? Well, you actually write a letter or send a fax to someone, and then maybe he sends you an appointment, and you have to go see him. You have to wait for days to get this appointment. You have to go there by traveling somehow, and then you wait in the waiting room until the guy has 15 minutes to talk to you. And we thought that was a ridiculous journey, and also sometimes a very painful journey. If you are, especially in specialized medicine, if you are critically ill, you have a life, let's say, challenging tumor in you somewhere. You don't want to wait 2 weeks to go somewhere or to travel to take the plane and bring your family along and all of that. So we thought we'd have to simplify that journey, the access to specialized medicine, and to remove it from the privileged thing it is, that not everybody gets to see the correct specialist. It's very difficult to know for your specific disease whom you should actually consult. And so that was a problem we were interested in. And then Greg, our CEO and main figure in Trustedoctor, was kind of the key driving force in that project. And then together we after about a year or so, we're discussing with many people also in Boston, we decided to build a platform that would connect basically doctors and patients with simplified algorithms that helps you find your key specialist. And the main idea was that you need to get access worldwide to whoever he's the key person or one of the key person in the disease within 48 hours or so. Maybe it's just 10 minutes, maybe it's just 15 minutes. And maybe it's just to check what your local guys said. Is it the correct thing, or do you need to modify treatment or something like that? And so that was Trustedoctor. I think we founded it probably now about 7 years ago.
Amazing, a real problem to solve and such a success also. Now, coming back to actually neurosurgery, what's your typical day look like? How long are the days? What does a good day look like versus a really stressful day? How does it feel to be in here and actually everybody depends on you?
So the good days are the really stressful days normally. Yeah. My week looks like on Monday we have outpatient. Today is Monday, so that means all day long patients come see me, patients over video call, or phone calls, that kind of things. There's a scientific lunch meeting, and then in the afternoon it's strategy meetings. So we'll discuss. We were just now about 25 people in a room, and we discussed strategies of about 30 patients that we always do on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the big surgical days. So we have 5 operation rooms here, of which we will normally use 3, maybe 4 of these. We will have a series of surgeries in these rooms. That's going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow we have 3 large cases and a series of smaller surgeries to do. As mentioned, we operate in teams. So we are 30 surgeons here at the hospital for new oncology, the main thing I do. We are probably about 10, 12 surgeons just working on that. And normally we would have, you know, two more junior people. So we'd all sit together, we discuss the case, and two more junior people will do the first steps under supervision. And then as it becomes more complicated and complex as we go into surgery, there may be a more senior one would come in, the youngest one would leave, and so on. So there's kind of a staged procedure in surgery. We've also learned that, you know, if you can be an amazing surgeon for an hour, for 2 hours, for 3, for 4 hours, but to be honest, after 4 hours, no matter what you think, your performance goes down. So we try nowadays to really get surgeons out of the room and have them take a break or really be substituted by somebody else. And also that if, you know, when it comes to crucial stages, that the surgeon who's going to do this has not been battling for the last 6 hours, because his performance, no matter what he thinks, is just not going to be the same.
And coming, so to speak, to your brain or your mindset, how do you keep a positive, how do you keep up an uplifted mindset? How do you stay, so to speak, focused, centered, clear, and present all the time? Is it just by virtue of being passionate, so you go into flow? Or is it also that you go through a ritual, you make sure somehow that you're ready to enter this room?
Yeah, big question.
Yeah, I
big
know.
question. So we all have our rituals, and it's a very important thing to have a plan before you go into these surgeries, which you either do with colleagues or then likewise very important, kind of run through this surgery on your own. It's super important that you look at all the complications that could occur, that you quickly think of what can go south all the way.
Unexpected.
And so that they are not unexpected.
Yes.
Not things that you want to happen, but things can go wrong. And normally if something goes wrong, that will do, because you have so many decisions to take during surgery. When things go wrong, as long as you expected them, as they were in a possibility in the back of your head, then you know exactly what to do. The real problem is if something happens which you hadn't thought about, and then suddenly all goes bad, and then you're confronted in a very stressful environment in which time is going to be critical, and then you cannot be doubtful and not knowing what to do. So you kind of you need these plan B, plan C, plan D for when things go wrong, what you do then. Normally when a surgery as a whole goes wrong, it's not because something happened. It's because something happened and you were not prepared for the consequences.
Okay. Just I need to take a breath because I can imagine the stakes and also the time and the management of everybody else, which happens in this session. Huge chapeau and like admiration that you're actually doing this work. So to go to something else super important but different, non-profit. On top of everything else you've been doing, you also found time for that. Can you tell us a little bit more why and what exactly are you doing and why is it dear to your heart?
Sure. So I worked in many countries and I traveled a lot. And you observe that we have here in Europe, also in Switzerland, you have an excellent healthcare system, I believe. At a very high standard, you have a lot of resources, which helps you to do a lot of good. And traveling, you realize if you're ever unfortunate enough that you have to go to a local hospital in you know, your typical holiday destination, very often that looks very different. So I thought a lot, you know, what can you do on the way? Is there other projects, or is there something you can contribute to make this better? And I had this deep feeling that if you want, you don't have to do that. But if you think that doing something philanthropic is an option for you, that's something you want to do because you either want to give back or because you simply, as in my case, I just love doing that. Whatever your motivation is, I think you should do it super early. Don't wait until you're like 70, 80, 100 years old when nobody else uses you anymore, and then you start doing something some faraway place. I think it's very useful to think very early. You might not have the means, you might not necessarily have all the knowledge to do that, but you know you have a lot of energy, and if you have a lot of goodwill on top of that, then you should start these projects early. And that's why I looked for a country where I can do medical education. I believe, but that's just my opinion, that if you want to change something in healthcare, you know, doing things in a country is not our job, it's their job. Providing instruments and so on, it's not our job, it's their government's job. But what we can do is help in knowledge, because that's something we have and we can share that. Every doctor you will educate in, let's say, Myanmar, where I work, that guy will do surgery 360 days per year. This is incomparably more than I can do by just going, like, you know, maybe for a week and doing some surgeries or something. And therefore, I think if you really want to change healthcare for the people in a country, educate the people to take care of their people. Not only because they can do much more because they're always present, they also understand them better. I've learned this the hard way. If you want to work as a surgeon, as a doctor in a culture which is not yours, you will be not as efficient as a local guy. You will do things that are not what they really want. You will always be a bit of a foreign person to them. And therefore, I think the golden way really is you have to educate doctors, nurses, technicians, whatever is needed. And this we've been doing. So we, with the help of the Red Cross, 15 years ago, went to Myanmar. We found one of the most beautiful countries you can imagine. Great people, very, very underdeveloped healthcare system, but very eager to learn. And so together we formed the Swiss Neurosurgeons International, which is a foundation that helps educate doctors and nurses. We go over, we spend about a month per year. We're in the country, we do workshops, educational events, surgeries together. They can say what they want to learn, then we do that with a theoretical background. We do the surgeries together. Sometimes we bring specialized equipment if they really need something. And then we take these people to Europe. So we take the promising doctors, nurses, tech people, take them here. We educate them here in Switzerland for a series of months. Then they go back. Maybe later they come again. So it's kind of a back and forth for them so that they can see what, you know, state-of-the-art surgery or medicine nowadays is. And I'm super grateful because we have a lot of people who support us. These are former patients, other foundations, philanthropists, individuals who help us do this and run this program. And therefore, we've, you know, over the years, we had dozens of doctors being educated here, dozens of nurses who could help. And really were able to lift healthcare system in our domain. Neurosurgery is very important for these countries because you have a lot of children who are born with some problems that you can solve, but you need to have a doctor on the ground. Everybody, if you remember, you know, a lot of these very warm tropical countries, everybody has a bike, motorbike, nobody has a helmet. You have a lot of people with trauma. And it's always a catastrophe if you lose somebody stupidly just because there's no neurosurgeon to help him out after an accident. There are a lot of accidents. And here you can make a tremendous difference. There was the Lancet report 2005, so the UN looked at that. And the biggest unmet need is not your malaria medication, is not even immunization anymore, it's surgery. We lack surgeons in these countries. And this is nothing you can buy. This is not, you can't just go to a pharmaceutical company and spend 500 million and problem is solved. This is a long process because you have to educate them. And that's a long slog. And that's the battle we chose, and that's the battle we fight now for this last 15 years.
Absolutely amazing. I'm speechless, I must almost say. Okay, so last question. Slightly easier question. What can the average human being like me do to make sure that I stay healthy, engaged, memory maybe, whatever it is, that I'm a better, healthier person in my brain?
Yeah, great question. What can you do? to save your brain. Why is that important? So it's a crucial question. Why? Because again, your brain is your center. This is where everything is at home. So you want to take good care of that. Brain problems is the number one killer of good lifetime. It is more important than anything cardiovascular, orthopedic, you name it. This is the one thing which threatens your good quality of life is more than anything else. What can happen? You can have serious diseases, dementia, infarction, all of that. What can you do to prevent that? It's a series of things. The first one is how does the brain stay healthy? It has to do with nutrition. Why? Because small blood vessels bring food to your cells, and your brain cells, they can go like 3 minutes without food. I mean, they're super vulnerable, so they need constant good quality food coming in and so on. So anything which helps you keep your blood vessels healthy is going to be good for your brain. So yes, no smoking. That's one. Watch out for your diet. It's when you look at people who are blue zone populations. Again, it means nuts, it means more fish. Some of them eat some pork, hardly any of them eat a lot of red meat. So probably that's the way to go. A lot of homegrown vegetables or just healthy vegetables, a lot of fish, a lot of olive oil. That's kind of the nutrition that keeps your blood vessels happy. Healthy blood vessels give you a healthy brain. That's one. Second one you can do, we know more and more that sleep is an absolutely crucial phase. And our understanding from sleep has changed a lot. Sleep, even when I was young, sleep is that one thing you have to do, which, is a bit of unfortunate because you could do a lot of fun stuff in the same time, but somehow your body is tired. So you have to have your body rest, right? We realize today that's not the case at all. You don't sleep because your muscles have to rest. So maybe a little bit, but actually no. Your brain never sleeps. Your brain is super active the entire night. And it has a lot to do with the function of your brain. I mean, every day your brain learns a new reality, new things which challenge the idea that the brain had of reality. And in the night, the brain has to make sense of all of that. Look at people who don't sleep for 3 days. Like, they get completely lost. I mean, that brain does not function anymore. The brain needs every 12 hours, every 20 hours, it needs a period where it kind of takes care of all the information that was here the last hours, throws a lot of things out because they're not important, and then takes the important, normally it's an emotionally important information, and fuses it with the existing knowledge of the universe that you had before. And the next day, your brain is ready again. If you don't give the brain that time to reset itself, it will go down. And you know that people who are sleep deprived, you're calling for early Alzheimer, early cognitive decline. So whatever sleep you need, and I say this as a doctor who has not slept enough, but whatever your body tells you you need sleep, be careful with that. Give him that sleep. So that's the second thing. Third thing is, when it comes to what can you actively do also from a cognitive perspective, we know from the way that the brain works, it needs challenges. If you don't challenge it, the brain function will eventually deteriorate. Why? Because your body always tries to preserve energy. And the brain is like the luxury thing you have. That thing burns through energy like nothing else. So if you tell your brain that it doesn't really need that function and so on, it will simply shut that down and that's gone. So if you want your brain to be an active instrument, which can, creatively look for solution and be an active thing, then you have to challenge it. And that can be anything. That can be, take different ways to work, to school, meet new people who have different ideas. These are really important things. I like to believe that learning other languages, other countries are important. There is certainly evidence that it is so in the very young. And then we can talk for hours about this. It's like the Flynn effect, how the population becomes smarter and smarter without us really understanding how that is possible. And it probably has to do with a very much more diverse environment that we grow up as kids. So a child's brain today has so many, so different ideas coming at it, with people who are very different around it, with ideas, religions, philosophical constructs which are different and challenging. So the brain has to be much more abstract thinking than it probably was 100, 200 years ago. And we believe to some degree that this is the reason why the brain is becoming smarter. And as once you've aged and you're a mature being, I strongly believe that remains the case. So yes, go look at different countries that have a different cultural context, where people think different. And if you want, learn a different language, because language is not just the words. There's always a different philosophy behind the language. It will open up new doors because you'll meet other people there. So I think this is a great thing you can do for your brain health.
So note to self: eat healthy, sleep plenty, and challenge yourself outside of your comfort zone or your normal.
Perfect.
Maybe add a little bit of exercise.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Mensana and corpore sano. If you have a healthy body, I mean, doing sport really cleans out a lot of things. It's a dopamine push. It's great for your being. Definitely make that part of your life. But that's not even debatable. I think nowadays we know that weekly exercise at the least is really important for your well-being. It's good for your weight control and whatnot. But it's also important for your level of happiness. Again, there I think similar to the non-profit world, don't do something you don't like. There's no point. If you hate running, don't go jogging. But try to find a sport that you do, something that you like doing. And then once you've found that, it's going to make you happy and it's going to be good for you.
Happiness always brings health, probably.
Definitely. Oh, and there's so much literature about this. There is a very clear link between happiness and your state of well-being. And there's also a lot of evidence that happiness is not external factors. Happiness is to a large degree a decision that you take as a human. And you can always say, well, that's easy to say, if you live in Switzerland and so on. Yes, but we've all had that. You go to very poor countries where people live on very little, and these guys are very happy. So external factors are of very little importance for your happiness. Happiness is your expectation of the world, and then what actually comes at you, and what your interpretation of that equation is at the end.
Philippe, so humbled, super grateful, super inspired, super admire all your work so much. I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one. Thank you so much for taking the time to actually speak to us. We really appreciate it. And for actually bringing us in here, we're extremely grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very nice to discuss with you.